Bishop Malesic, first of all, welcome to Cleveland. Your thoughts so far?
Well, thank you, Russ. I feel very welcomed here by many people, and thanks for welcoming me to your program. My impression is that this is a tremendous city. I found already to that there are so many people of strong faith here. I've enjoyed my time here. I've only been here for about a week and a half now.
You mentioned in your homily that when you first spoke with your predecessor, now Archbishop Perez, he said two things to you: "Lucky you," and "Cleveland rocks." What
That's
else did he tell you about this town and the people who you now represent?
I think he found his 2.5 years here to be some of the most enjoyable of his priesthood. He really loved the priests here. He loved the people. He was engaged with the people, the flock, the city, the different civic leaders as well as church leaders. He really loved his time here. I'm coming from a city that I grew to love, Greensburg. And so I was a little nervous when I was appointed to Cleveland. I said, I'm going to go to a bigger city. What's it going to be like? And he really reassured me that I would enjoy it here.
I was going to ask, I need to ask you about that. You're coming to a diocese that is 5 times larger than the diocese you came from. What are the unique challenges associated with that?
I knew the names of all of my priests in Greensburg within 3 days. Here, there are pages and pages and pages of priests and pages and pages and pages of parishes just to learn the names of these places and the cultures of the place will take me some time. But I'm willing to do that. I'm ready to do that.
You, in your homily, talked about the vision. You said you were asked all the time, what is your vision? And you have said that your vision is to communicate the gospel to people. Given that, how would you describe your style? How do you do that?
How do you do that? By being myself, by talking to people, by listening to as many people as it's possible to do, by going out and learning what's going on in our parishes, what's going on in our cities, which we have more cities in our diocese than Cleveland, but just getting out and about. The vision is really given to me by the gospel. The vision is given to me by God, and the vision of God is to go out and preach this good news, and for the purpose of salvation. We're all headed towards heaven. We want to get to heaven. We want to find that place of peace and contentment, and we want to bring a piece of that here too in our own communities now.
You talked about getting out and about. I guess how much do you expect to be involved actively in the hot button issues of the day? And I'm thinking when Bishop Perez was here, he would go to immigration hearings. He would write letters on behalf of people who were facing deportation. How active should we expect you to get in some of these issues that we face in these times?
Sure, absolutely. I think that you can expect me to be as active as he was, certainly to secure the rights of all people, which is important for us to work for a justice which leads to peace. This is important for us. So as the issues come up and as they're raised, I think the church has a voice, and that the voice needs to be heard in all these different things. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I know how you're going to answer this, but if someone wanted to put a label on you, conservative, progressive, what label would you put on yourself?
Faithful.
I
I,
thought
I'm
you were.
not, I'm not called to be conservative or progressive. I'm called to be faithful to the gospel. That's what I'll be. Other people can label me how they want to do that, but at the end of the day, the Lord's not going to ask me whether I was conservative or progressive. He's going to ask me whether I followed him, picked up my cross, and was faithful to the gospel.
You were born in Harrisburg, went to school in Columbus. Uh, what do you want people to know about your time, your previous time in this area? I should say your previous time in the state of Ohio.
And I enjoyed Ohio. I enjoyed there's a certain warmth about the people who live in Ohio, and I found that certainly in 6 years in Columbus. I'm finding it again here in Cleveland. I'm glad to be back in Ohio. I really am. I'm glad to be back in Ohio. 6 great years in Columbus. Absolutely, some of the best years of my life were in Columbus, Ohio.
I'm going to ask you some questions about you in just a minute as we get to know you, but also in your homily on homily on Monday, I guess you in your homily on Monday, you mentioned that the church will not tolerate any sort of sexual abuse.
True.
And I know I'm reading an article now from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. This is a quote: Bishop Malesic's Greensburg tenure was marked dramatically by a Pennsylvania statewide grand jury investigation into sexual abuse by clergy, an investigation his diocese first tried to halt before responding with listening sessions, a compensation program, and various reforms. So obviously, you're very transparent
Yeah.
in dealing with this. Can you describe to me what was the process like going from that period where you wanted to halt it to saying to yourself, we have to embrace this?
I'm sorry, from the time when I did what?
From the time, according to reading this article, from the time where I guess what it's saying is the diocese first tried to halt the
Oh,
investigation, but then responded with
yeah.
listening sessions, a compensation program, and various reforms. I guess I'm wondering, what was the process like going from that period of wanting to halt this to going to this very, very open period of transparency?
Yeah, I don't ever remember a time where we tried to halt it at all. I think that we cooperated with the process as well as we could. And I think that it was important for us to speak to the people of God who were receiving a lot of information about what the grand jury report had said. And it really revealed terrible things, awful things that happened decades ago. And we needed to allow our people to process that themselves and to assure them that the church was protecting children and reaching out to victims. The important thing, I think, was to listen to our people. You know, there was a lot of anger, and obviously rightfully so, that the trust that they had placed in the church in the 70s and 80s that church failed them in many ways. And we needed to let them know what we were doing today, because many people did not know what we were doing today to protect children. So we went out and let them know all the things that we were doing. We also needed to reach out to our victims, to apologize to them again, to let them know that we were there with them. We wanted to stand with them.
You also mentioned, this is another quote from the article, this is you. Sometimes people say the church is mean, the church is corrupt. That's just not the church I belong to.
Right.
Bishop, in these times, how do you convince people of that?
I think by trying to be as authentic and transparent as I can possibly be, by letting them know what the church is, what the church isn't, by letting them experience disciples who really believe in Jesus and allow them to see what we do and how we do it. By letting them into the window of the church. I think one of the hidden blessings of the COVID-19 crisis, when we were streaming all these masses, people got to see what happens inside our walls. What do we do? How do we worship? What do we look like? I think that's important.
The question that I'm sure you're asked all the time, that I'm sure many bishops are asked, and many of faith are asked, how do you bring people back to church? How do you get them to come back on Sundays?
You mean after the COVID-19 crisis, or in
So
general?
I guess I'm speaking in general. How do you get more people to embrace the church? How do you get them to come back to church once the world returns normal again?
By letting them know what we have to offer, and by not letting other people define who we are, but letting people see who we are. I mean, a lot of people will define what the church is, but they haven't been in a church in years. So we have to go out there and let them know what is the church, who it is that we have to offer. We have Jesus Christ. We offer him and his message. That in the church we have the ability to bring God into people's lives. I think that there are people who are looking for something to fulfill them, and they look in a lot of different places. One of those places where they should take a serious look is the church.
You also mentioned in your homily on Monday, and I'm quoting again here, we have to be pro-life in the fullest sense of the term, end quote. Of course, part of church doctrine. But I wonder, Bishop, in this election year, are you giving a message to the flock politically?
I'll give a message to the flock on what principles we evaluate people by. That we are pro-life in the broadest sense, and our bishops have spoken, and I agree with the bishops that the preeminent priority is to give everyone the right to life, the right to be born. But then we go beyond that as well, that there are other important issues too. The right to health care, the right to a good name, the right to due process, the right to be safe and secure.
So no one should take that necessarily as a political endorsement when you quote church doctrine like that.
I think, what my job is to teach the teaching of the church and to form people's consciences, and hopefully they listen to what the teaching of the church is, and they vote what they believe.
All right, let's talk about you, get to know you a little bit. What's your favorite food?
What's my favorite food? Steak. I like steak. I like a good juicy steak.
Yeah, there's some really good steakhouses here. I think you'll be fine there. Any hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not working?
Yeah, I like to watch television. I like to listen to music. I like to read. I like to go for a walk. I like to get out and just walk.
All right, you have a favorite television show?
Mm, I wouldn't say there's any favorite television show right now. I've been watching The Crown, and that's been fascinating for me to watch that.
You and I, as we discussed, celebrate milestone birthdays this year. I don't think you'll mind it. I mind it, but I'm sure you don't. We're both 60
Yeah,
years old. We probably
yeah.
have similar music tastes. What kind of music do you like?
I'm pretty diverse. I like classical for sure. I like jazz. I'm beginning to like some country. I have to say, I've been listening to some country music. I'm liking that. I like soft rock, not hard rock.
It's funny when that turn happens. I have the same thing. I like soft rock as well. I couldn't tell you when that turn happened, but it did.
My mother was a piano teacher in the home, so I listened to a lot of music growing up.
That's fabulous. Fabulous. All right. Toughest question you'll get today. Steelers or Browns?
Well, I will answer by saying I now have a face mask that has one side the Steelers and the other side the Browns. So I'm eclectic in my, but I'm here in Cleveland. I support the Browns. This is where I
Are you
am, my home.
are you are you going to sneak a terrible towel into First Energy Stadium if you go to a game?
I'll let you into a secret. Before I left Greensburg, the Pittsburgh area, someone knitted me a very small, terrible towel and said, "You can put this in your pocket and no one will see it."
As you said, Bishop, you've been here for a week and a half. What are your hopes for yourself and for your tenure here?
My hope for myself is that I grow spiritually. My hope is that I continue to grow in my relationship with Jesus, and that I'm able to give what I have, the relationship I have with my Lord, to the people that are around me. That's my truest hope. My other hope is to get to learn Cleveland and the cities of the diocese of Cleveland, including Akron and other places near and far, better, to get out and to meet the people. Yeah, to become a true member of this church. I mean, I'm a member of the Diocese of Cleveland now. I want to get to know it. That will give me great happiness. As I said, I come as a stranger. I hope to become a brother.
And finally, Bishop, as you know, as we have discussed, so many are suffering because of COVID-19 in so many ways, emotionally, financially, in any way that you can think of, really. What words of hope would you have for people as we all try to get through these times?
I was installed on the Feast of the Triumph of the Cross, and the Triumph of the Cross tells us that suffering doesn't end just in suffering, that with the Lord, it ends in victory. So we carry this cross. We're going to pick up this cross, the cross of COVID-19, and we're going to follow with the Lord, and we'll find victory. Eventually, we will get through this. And it's easier to get through it together than alone. And it's easier to get through it with God than without God.
Bishop Edward Malesic, once again, congratulations on your installation. It is great to have you here in Cleveland and hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you, Russ. It's been great to be with you today. God bless.
God bless you. Take care.